In their mission to combat the Brotherhood of Nod and maintain peace across the world, the Global Defense Initiative relied heavily on its navy. This important, but often overlooked aspect of GDI's military played a key role in protecting trade routes and providing support for GDI forces throughout the 3 major wars against the Brotherhood. While they can only be viewed in cutscenes, GDI used both aircraft carriers and landing helicopter dock, or LHD, ships during the First Tiberium War. LHD seemed to get the most attention, responsible for landing troops on beaches using amphibious craft, as well as using helicopters, mostly CH-46 Sea Knights. Brigadier General Adam Locke, who oversaw GDI's special war operations during the First Tiberium War, made use of an LHD as his command center. Locke would give mission briefings to Commando Havoc and provide him with air and ship transportation for his missions. When deploying their forces onto beaches from the well deck of an LHD, GDI utilized 3 types of air cushion vehicles, also known as hovercraft. The first of these was the Jeff A hovercraft. The Jeff A was used by both GDI and the Brotherhood, especially during the early years of the war. With its 4 ducted fans, the Jeff A could quickly transport troops, vehicles, and supplies from ship to shore. While the Brotherhood would continue to use the Jeff A in the late stages of the conflict, GDI would replace their own with the LCAC. GDI's LCAC was similar to the Jeff A, the primary differences being that the LCAC was a little larger, so as to carry more supplies, infantry, or vehicles. In addition, the LCAC had larger ducted fans so it could move across the water faster. The third hovercraft variant that GDI used seemed to forgo the ducted fans, replacing them with 4 turbofans for increased speed. At least, this seems to be the case for the 2 engines at the back of the craft, which was also where the driver operated the vehicle. The front of the vehicle acted as a ramp, which folded out to allow infantry to exit the craft onto the beach. Other than its unique design, what separated this hovercraft from the others was that it could only carry infantry. The gunboat was considered the true backbone of GDI's navy during the First War. This vessel was often seen providing offshore fire support to GDI forces close to the shoreline of rivers and beaches. According to the Tiberian Dawn manual, the gunboat was armed with the Tomahawk missile, but in-game, the boat's launcher seems to function more like GDI's M270 MLRS, which was armed with 2 27mm rockets. In addition to the missile launcher, the gunboat also had what looked to be 2 heavy machine guns located at the stern of the ship. Crewmen operated these guns to take out enemy infantry on the shore. Unfortunately, these machine guns are only seen during a cutscene and have no in-game function. The gunboat was heavily armored, and could do significant damage to enemy forces with its surface-to-surface missiles. Nod's Obelisk of Light could hit the vessel from long range, causing significant damage. Such a weapon caught GDI forces in Hungary off guard when they attempted to use gunboats to destroy a Nod base. The Obelisk did enough damage to the gunboats to allow Nod turrets to finish them off. This made the destruction of the Nod base more difficult for the GDI commander, who then had to rely purely on his land army for the mission's success. A gunboat famously supported Havoc as he made his way around a Nod-controlled island, attempting to gather information on the whereabouts of GDI scientists captured by the Brotherhood. No information is available on the status of GDI's navy or what significant role it played during the Second Tiberium War, other than acting as potential disembarking points for GDI's new amphibious APC. But what is certain is that, like the rest of GDI's military during this time, the Navy made significant upgrades to its fleet. However, the Navy would have also been subject to a series of cutbacks to its funding during the interim years between the Second and Third Wars, as GDI shifted its priorities from military spending to environmental spending. Even with these cutbacks, GDI's navy would still have a formidable number of advanced transports, battleships, and aircraft carriers. At the start of the Third Tiberium War, the Brotherhood launched preemptive strikes against GDI blue zones across the planet. Blue Zone B2 encompassed much of the northeastern seaboard of the United States, and came under heavy assault by the Brotherhood. A recently promoted GDI commander was tasked with retaking vital regional locations captured by Nod, including Langley Air Force Base and the naval base at Hampton Roads. During the mission to retake Langley, the GDI commander received support from a battleship sitting just off the coast. The GDI battleship featured a trimaran tumble-home hull design. Trimaran, meaning the ship consisted of one central hull and two smaller side hulls called amas. Tumble-home referred to all surfaces of the ship sloping inward from the waterline, so as to reduce radar cross-section. This design gave the battleship a knife-like profile, enabling it to pierce through a wave rather than riding over the top, resulting in greater stability and less stress on the vessel. Rising above the main deck of the ship was the deckhouse, which housed the bridge, advanced radar systems, and habitable areas. As for its armament, the battleship had 4 gun turrets, 2 on the port and 2 on the starboard sides of the vessel. These gun turrets sat on sponsons protruding from the ship's deck. On top of the deckhouse were 2 anti-air missile turrets, which could rotate 360 degrees and were each armed with 8 missiles. The last weapon was the vertical launch system, VLS, located at the stern, which would launch cruise missiles at designated targets. Just as GDI sniper teams could call in a bombardment from juggernauts, so too could they request fire support from an offshore battleship. The support came in the form of the aforementioned cruise missiles. The battleship off the coast of Langley AFB was integral in providing offshore fire support for GDI land forces, allowing them to retake the airbase. The base would go on to provide the GDI commander with much-needed air support to repel Nod forces from the Blue Zone. 3 GDI battleships supported GDI forces in retaking Hampton Roads from the Brotherhood. The ships came under attack by Nod's Vertigo stealth bombers, which were able to sink one of them. Thanks to a GDI commando, the Nod air tower housing the bombers was destroyed. This allowed the battleships to provide fire support for the GDI forces flown in to eliminate Nod's production facilities. With these facilities destroyed, GDI regained control of the Hampton Roads naval base. Battleships didn't just provide offshore support for GDI's land forces, they were also integral in protecting the organization's aircraft carriers. The Third Tiberium War aircraft carriers utilized the same trimaran hull design of the battleships, though the carriers themselves were much larger. At the stern of the ship was the superstructure, where the flight control tower and bridge were located, with the radar placed just at the back of the control tower. At the midship was the first flight deck, which was used by VTOL aircraft to take off and land, accommodating up to 4 aircraft, including the Orca, Firehawk, and Hammerhead gunship. Stretching from the midship to the bow of the carrier was the second flight deck, or runway, for aircraft to take off from. Landing on this runway, however, left very little room for error, especially since a miss would put the pilot in danger of running into aircraft on the first deck at the midship, or flying straight into the bridge. Since most of GDI's aircraft were VTOLs though, my guess is that they would just use the catapult on the runway for takeoff, but would land vertically. For defense, the aircraft carrier had 4 gun turrets. 2 were located midship between the 2 flight decks. The other 2 turrets were located near the stern, between the bridge and first flight deck. Unfortunately, the aircraft carrier has limited gameplay functionality, only acting in the same capacity as the standard airfield structure, except on water. In order to support their offensive in Blue Zone B2, the Brotherhood needed to capture the GDI naval port at Hampton Roads. The GDS Paith aircraft carrier was docked in the port at the time, and proved to be an opportune target for Nod to destroy. A commando was smuggled in via a cargo container. She was able to successfully reach the carrier, eliminate a GDI commando protecting it, and sink the carrier using explosives. With the carrier sunk, the Brotherhood brought in reinforcements, eliminating the rest of the GDI forces and seizing control of the port. Another GDI carrier was sunk off the coast of Brazil. This was part of Nod's push to reach the airport in Rio de Janeiro to transport components of the liquid Tiberium bomb to Kane's Temple Prime in Sarajevo. The aircraft carrier provided vital air support to GDI forces in the region, so the Nod commander sunk it, which crippled GDI's air operations. When Kane's AI Legion assaulted the Chilean Blue Zone and captured GDI's chief Tiberium research scientist, Dr. Giraud, the organization sent in reinforcements to repel the Nod force and eliminate the Doctor. 2 aircraft carriers docked at the harbor and deployed hammerhead gunships across the region. These weren't typical GDI carriers though, they were ZOCOM ones, as denoted by the symbol painted on the superstructure of each ship. Zone Operations Command was a special division within GDI, tasked with performing operations in the Tiberium-infested red zones. This makes it all the more interesting that they have these carriers in their arsenal, as one wouldn't think they would be necessary for the kinds of missions ZOCOM typically engaged in. Either way, the Brotherhood were able to evacuate Dr. Giraud from the region, easily convincing him to switch sides, after ZOCOM attempted to eliminate the Doctor rather than rescue him. Just like in the First Tiberium War, GDI continued to make use of hovercraft ACVs to transport troops and supplies from ship to shore. This hovercraft was huge, capable of transporting a significant number of troops, or a few light and medium armored vehicles. The craft was even capable of carrying a single mammoth tank. The hovercraft had 2 engines attached to each side of the vehicle. It had a large tail attached to the roof, located at the back of the craft. The main ramp was located at the front, just below the operator's station. A smaller ramp was also located at the back of the craft under the tail. Notable instances of the hovercraft during the Third War included landing reinforcements off the coast of Langley AFB to support the GDI garrison and recapture the base. When GDI assaulted the Nod port of Alexandria in Egypt, they were able to destroy 2 Nod battleships that were docked at the harbor. With these ships destroyed, a couple of hovercraft sailed into the harbor. Each one dropped off a mammoth tank, which supported GDI forces as they eliminated the rest of the Nod garrison. 4 hovercraft arrived, along with the 2 ZOCOM aircraft carriers, at the port in the Chilean Blue Zone. Each of these hovercraft dropped off a single slingshot anti-air vehicle, which tried to shoot down the Nod carryall transporting Dr. Giraud. The state of GDI's navy in the aftermath of the Third Tiberium War is unknown, though I think it's fair to say that GDI still had one. This is in contrast to the Brotherhood's navy, whose existence was in doubt. So long as civilian ships continue to sail across the oceans, GDI will continue to maintain a navy, projecting power and protecting trade routes from both human and perhaps even extraterrestrial threats in the foreseeable future.